Welcome to a BS podcast. I am your host, Bobby, along with Mark, back again. And we are actually recording this the weekend of Thanksgiving. So we're going to kind of keep it a little light. And figured we'd talk about being burnt out at work and how we deal with burnout at work. And before we really get going, I do want to say if it sounds a little different, my mixing board crapped out on me, and we had to send it back to the manufacturer to get it fixed. Or, well, I guess they're swapping it out for us. But anyways, so if it sounds a little different, we're using a little different recording setup this week. But hopefully that'll be back soon, and we can get back to what we were doing and using our normal setup. But we'll get on to it. So, burnout at work. This is something Mark and I have discussed. Is usually, or has been the topic of many of our phone call discussions. Whereas, especially with me early on, starting out as a mechanic, and I worked as a mechanic anywhere from automotive to ag and heavy construction to being specialized in a fuel shop where I was just working on diesel injection systems. And the only place I don't ever really remember just getting burnt out after a given period of time was when I worked at the fuel shop. But every place else, I mean, the mechanic thing, I really took a toll on me towards the end. I just got to the point I was tired of doing it and didn't want to do it anymore, which is what led me to jump and ship and start welding full time. But I guess besides changing jobs, I think the idea here was for us to kind of talk about how we deal with it on a more of a day-to-day basis. So, how do you typically deal with, and how do you go about that?
Well, usually I spend about 10 minutes cruising Indeed, looking for different jobs, ready just to burn the whole place to the ground. But no, in all honesty, it's going to happen. The longer you're in any industry, it kind of loses the new car smell, and you get burnt out. I mean, I've quoted you before, and I'll do it again. If a 5-minute conversation can fix your daily problems, then it's really not that big of an issue. But being burnt out, it's a big thing. But I think you need to also know the difference between burnout and fed up. If you're fed up, there's nothing going to stop that. But if you're burnt out, I usually have to take a minute and just take a step back. I don't know, more or less. Like I say, I usually look at a few open jobs somewhere, and that calms me down. I don't know why it is, but you see the grass ain't always greener. Yeah, is it the right thing to do? No, not at all. But it's what I do.
I'll say that's probably been one of the worst parts about getting frustrated or burnt out lately has been, because I do the same thing. I won't lie. You get on Indeed and you start looking for different jobs and stuff. And since going to the union, it makes it really hard because everything you look at is a dramatic pay cut.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so it kind of gets you to focus back in on, making sure you're, like you said, are you burnt out or are you fed up? And usually it's just a whole bunch of dumb stuff has accumulated in one day. And that is one of the reasons, the biggest thing that helps me out, I guess, when it comes to getting burnt out at work, is the driving. That helps me out a ton. At first, currently, my drive from my house to work is about an hour, 50 minutes. On a good day, it's 60 minutes or a little more, depending on traffic. But And in the morning, it breaks up because I usually stop at the gym part way into work. I stop in another town and work out in the gym there before on my way into work. So that kind of breaks the drive up. But coming home in the evenings, having that 50 to 65 minute drive home, that really makes a huge difference for me, because if it has been a day where you're just tired of the lack of communication, you're tired of the people changing they give you a plan to do it this way, and then all of a sudden it's like that's out the window. And I knew I was going to get into that, coming into this, but it's like everything we do is that way. There's nothing that's, and we seem to, every place I've ever worked, management always tries to do things backwards. And it's just that drive home is what really gives me a chance to stop and think about what's going on and really kind of focus back in on, yeah, this was silly and I don't agree with the way we did it, but I can at least wrap my head around what took a toll on me that day, and put it back into perspective. So that's I know that's been a big help on helping out with the burnout or the other or being fed up. The other thing is I've noticed it's those long stretches where you don't have any time off is where the burnout really sets in. Or if I haven't ever really ran into it with where I work now, because since I've been there, we've never really been slow. We've slowed down a little bit, but work-wise, they've kept us busy with work. But it seems to me in my past work history, burnout's either set in when we've been super slow and there's not a lot going on, or like for us this year, we've worked, since I've been at the company I work for now, this year has been the most overtime we've worked since I've been there. So like we started working overtime, and and it's an excavation company, so like in the wintertime when the ground's frozen, they ain't moving a whole lot of dirt. And they do pipe work and directional boring and stuff too, but we don't do a ton of groundwork January and February. But like this past year, we kicked off overtime the second full week of January, or it'd be the first full week of January, because the week of New Year's we didn't work any overtime. But that next week, I think like on Tuesday, we went to 10-hour days, and we've worked 10 or 12-hour days since then. And in the past, normally around 4th of July, they'd back it off to 40 hours for a couple of weeks, and then it would pick back up, and we would work a bunch of overtime again in through September, early October, and then they'd cut it back. And it's like and I'm not complaining because the money's great, but you got to wrap your head around that. Otherwise, it will absolutely burn you out. And so I know that's one thing. I look forward to Christmas time, because I know that we're going to be off for at least a week. So maybe I'm crossing my fingers, hoping maybe 2 weeks this year. And I know that really gives me a chance to reset. So what do you do, Mark?
Well, first off, anytime I'm feeling any type of burnout, I just turn on a BS podcast, and that cures all of my problems, every single one of them. For me, in all honesty, it's preventing it is how I cure it. And you talked about jobs of the past. The best job I've ever had was working at a municipality, and it was me, Bob, and some other pretty cool cats in a shop, and there was no way we could have ever been burnt out. We didn't even get a bunch of overtime, but we were so far behind. We had passion for our projects. We were turning a public works department around, and that was pretty cool. And there was all this great stuff about it, except for, I think by probably April in normal year now, I make what I did in a whole year back then, and that's a thing you got to remind yourself of, is sometimes the BS ain't there, but neither's the pay. And it's for me, I got to head it off before it hits there, because I get burnt out and it don't last very long, and then you're going to go back to the board, or because like you say, you're burnt out because you ain't doing anything. And if my mind's at idle too long. But in here with the company I'm with now, I am 100% my own entity in Indiana. There's one other field mechanic. We have no shop. There's no home office. My home office is my house. That's where stuff, if something has to get sent to the shop, it gets sent to my house. It's a great idea, but sometimes I'll go weeks and I'm just seeing equipment. I don't see people. There's not much interaction, and it makes it quite easy to, an idle mind's the devil's playground, and that really does happen, because you don't see anybody. There's nobody to bring you back down, and you can kind of go into some weird places. And I think I've switched careers 18 times on those weeks that I'm gonna go fly helicopters, more or less. But that's my trick. I mean, how do I do it each time? I don't know. I don't know how I do half the stuff I do, but my trick is, it's heading it off at the pass. It's stopping it as soon as it's happened. Trying to stay busy. That's, I think, everybody's cure for it. But if you're going to be a trades guy, or you're going to be a field mechanic, especially, we have to be the service manager, the parts manager, the tech, tech support, everything. We got to do it all. And you also have to be your own cheerleader. You got to keep yourself driven to keep moving forward, to keep pushing on, to get that last, you got an extra half hour, 45 minutes at the end of the day. You got to really push yourself to keep focused, to keep on the job. It's real easy. Hey, I just want to go sit in the truck. Nobody's going to know. And that's where it's the mental game. I mean, and I know, Bob, you're sitting there right now thinking, man, I've heard you call me up just complaining about everything. There's probably not much mental game there, but it's that happens. And in all honesty, it's going to happen. You got to have somebody you can vent to. In the trades, our wives don't know what we do. They know we go out and fix stuff, and they get tired of driving by job sites and we're telling them what we've done there and how horrible this was. My wife told me today, she's a nurse, and we've kind of got our first good cold snap. She's like, I'll pick up all the shifts I can, so you don't have to work outside in this. And oh, well, thanks. That's all I said was thanks. But I was really thinking, I was like, you ain't gonna pick up any shifts. You're gonna forget all about that when you're working, and you're temperature controlled. I mean, I don't want her job, but it is. I don't know. I'm a little off base there. This sharing a mic, I don't know. It's not working, because there's not back and forth with it. We pass the mic back to each other,
and I don't know if we can kind of keep it in the middle.
But
So
we're kissing then.
So the trouble we have is I only have one USB mic, so I only have one mic that I can plug directly into my laptop without my mixer. So that's why it sounds a little weird. And we're swinging the boom arm back and forth between us. I'll be honest, it's a sucky setup, but we wanted to record something, so we're doing it, making the best of it. Kind of like you do at work. You get handed a crappy situation and you just figure out how to make it work. But and that's really it's funny we're talking about this because this is basically what prompted us recording this. Because what Mark and I have done for seems like multiple years now, if we're not at the same job, on our way either to work in the mornings or on our way home from work in the evenings, it's not uncommon for us to have a 15, 20, 30-minute phone call and kind of vent about what's going on. And, excuse me, that's kind of where Mark was saying is earlier on that are you burnt out or are you fed up? Because if we can solve the problem and just get past it in that short phone conversation, that was just a bad day at work. And everybody's going to have those. And I guess that's part of the reason we wanted to talk about this a little bit today. Especially for young guys first getting into the trades. There are going to be days that it's just going to absolutely suck. And you're going to want to pull your hair out, beat your head against a wall. And there's going to be some dude that's old enough to be your dad that is going to ride your hind end like no other. And it's going to suck. I don't know how else to put it. It's going to be terrible. But all that guy is trying to do is make sure that you're going to hold your mustard and you're going to be a guy that sticks around and shows up for work. Because if they can browbeat you for a little bit here and there and give you a hard time, they're just making sure you're going to be the guy that sticks around. Because I've worked many places where guys, they take crap for a couple of days as being the new guy. And especially with where I work, because I'm the only, at the shop, I'm the only welder, I'm air quoting. Sorry, I don't know why. It's habit. I'm the only welder there at the shop. And everybody else at the shop is mechanics. And they just ride me all the time about being the mechanic or the welder, and because I'm the odd man out, and it's all in good fun, and I give it right back, and that's just part of it, and as long as you don't take it too far, that is. I don't want to be like the old welder jumping off a picnic table.
WWF style.
But
I'm gonna steal the mic real quick. So I've had a mechanic. You talk about the young guys, and you're right, Bob, because that's kind of one of our mission statements. Is we wanna show what it's like in the industry. I've had a apprentice. He was Owen, is my brother-in-law. He was my apprentice for a while, and I was harder on him than probably 99% of the senior guys and apprentices. And Owen, I know there were days that he was ready just to quit, hang it up. He was done until one day one of the other guys got into Owen's crap. And then it's like, no, buddy. That's my apprentice. You get the hell back. And that's really how it is. No matter how hard they're going to fight with you, they're going to probably fight somebody else twice as hard for you. And you got to realize that. If you want to be in the trades, if you want to make the money and what is the blue collar bad boy or dirtbag, 6-figure dirt bag, whatever they want to call it. If you want to be that, you got to put up with this stuff. There's nobody going to take it easy on you, but no one's meaning anything bad by this. We just, like Bob's saying, we just want to make sure you're going to stick around. And if you are, great. We'll show you everything. But if you're not, we're not wasting our time with you. We're not going to show you the secrets we have, because that's what keeps us valuable the older we get. But hey, if you're with it for the long run, we will show you how to make this job so easy. We'll tell you all the mistakes, just like we were told and we didn't listen. Mm-hmm. But we'll try our damnedest for you. But you got to stick it out. And if there's somebody out there listening to this podcast, because last I checked, we had 34 people. I want to thank every last one of you. I know most of you are probably me and Bob's aunts and uncles who are just doing this because they're worried about us. But thank you. Thank you all for listening. But if there is by chance somebody who is just at the edge, like, man, I'm burnt out, and if you've only been doing this for a couple years, you ain't burnt out, you're just pissed off. You will be fine. Just keep going into work. It will pay off. And the thing is, in any blue collar trade, it starts paying off and it never stops. You just have to put in the time. And in all honesty, I don't want to date myself or sound like this, but it is so, it's up there for the taking right now. Anybody that wants to go after it and who's willing to put in the work and take the crap, because there's going to be crap with it, but just take it, roll with it, listen to what these guys have to say, and you're gonna have a good, fulfilling job that's going to provide years and years of income for you. You know, as long as you don't cut a hand off or something, because I mean, it is a mechanic. That's about your worst fear, especially working by yourself. That's my wife. Bob called me one time. I hadn't talked to him in a day or so, and it wasn't a phone call. It was a welfare check. He was just making sure I wasn't stuck underneath a piece of equipment. But he talked my wife into raising my life insurance, so I guess that's what I get. So, take it away, Bob.
I sent him flowers, or sent his wife flowers too. I thought he was dead. So, you said something, and I was going to respond to it, and I forgot all about it. Of course I did. Well, and
for listening.
Yeah. So you were talking about that with the young guys. That actually, that kind of took place with me not all that long ago. I have a nephew that is just getting into the HVAC field. And it was right before he graduated. And he'd gone to the same vocational school that I went through. But, of course, he went through the HVAC program where I went through the mechanics program. And I remember they were up here for New Year's Eve or something, my brother and his family. And my nephew got all butthurt about something, and that was, we kind of went up to the shop, me and my brother and my nephew, and me and my brother were sitting up there having a beverage and a cigar, and I just asked my nephew, I was like, what's getting to you? What's bugging you? And him and my daughter had got into a dispute over something silly, and I'll be the first one to say it. My daughter is hard-headed as I am, and if she knows she's right, she ain't going to back down, and she wouldn't, and it made him mad. And that was what I was telling him. I was like, if you're going to get mad at something silly like that, I was like, you're going to struggle in the HVAC field. I says, I know I haven't ever worked in HVAC, but they're trades guys, just like everybody I work with. We're kind of for the lack of better description, we can be kind of a rough group of people. And they're all great people. They're just rough around the edges. And they do. They're going to bust your chops and try to see what you can take. When they find your breaking point, that's the funny part. If they find there's a spot that is too far, they'll only touch that once or twice and verify that's what it is. And then they know not to go that far. Because they're not trying to do it just to irritate you. They're trying to make sure they got somebody that's going to stick around and be one of the guys that's complaining about being burnt out at work 5 years later. And, know that they've got a team member that's going to help them out and help further the cause, if you will. Get the work done and get it done in the time that it needs to be done in. And I guess the other side of being burnt out and knowing what we mean by being burnt out or fed up, I guess the other way that we could talk about that is you got to come up with ways to, or at least I do. Mark talks about heading it off at the pass, and there's that's a great thing. But sometimes when you're not at work, you got to have something to do to change your mindset.
Like listening to the ABS podcast.
No, you do that while you're working if you're allowed to. Because that's I listen to all my podcasts during the day while I'm in the shop, because I spend all day by myself. So podcast is what keeps me somebody to talk to. But so one of the things I've found is I got to find something to do when I'm not at work to redirect my thoughts, and just get my mind on something totally different. And I will tell you, when I was first married, first working full time in the trades, because I graduated high school. I started to go to a technical school to further my education, and I realized that it was silly because they were putting too much emphasis on stuff to me that did not relate to me being able to. What are you after? Paper. Being after. I had a pen. I don't. Oh, it's in the notebook. But to me, I was going to be a mechanic, and I wanted to learn stuff that would give me knowledge to work towards being a better mechanic. I did not care about taking history classes, and I'd done all that stuff in high school. And I will tell you, actually, in tech school, the history class was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed that one, but some of the other stuff it just didn't suit, which is why I didn't. But then I started, and I was working full time. I got married just a couple years out of high school, and I was working as a mechanic all day, and then doing side work at night, moonlighting, either helping my brother work on stuff at his house, working on stuff, people I knew, I'd work on it at my house, or sometimes it was working on stuff for the folks that were not in the service department at the dealership, and they'd come back and see one of the mechanics and say, hey, can you do this? And as long as we were doing it for employees of the company, they would let us do side work that was for other employees. They would let us do that, which was a nice thing. But I figured out, and it took me a long time. It probably took me 10, maybe 15 years into working before I realized I couldn't come home and do the same thing at night that I spent the previous 10, 12, 14 hours doing, because it just made the burnout even worse. And like I said, I was well into my mid to late 30s before it finally hit me in the head and was like, you have to find something else to do to occupy your time. And that was a struggle for a while. I bounced around and did all kinds of weird stuff. You
mowing grass a lot.
Yeah.
You did that.
Yeah, when we were at the city, I took up mowing because I had a zero-turn mower that we used here at the house, and I just started getting some commercial accounts to where I could do some mowing. I earned a little side money that helped out when we were slow at work, because I could put that back. It paid for a few vacations, and it also paid for one of the other things I did was I got into competitive shooting, so it paid for me to go to matches on the weekends. So, what is it that you do that is not work related that you can kind of cut away and helps you with burnout, Mark?
It'd be anything on the water. That's I'm sorry. Yeah, anything on the water. That's why I go to work. I think we all have, obviously, after the family, house, and those responsibilities. That's anything I can do on the water is how I get through it. That's my light at the end of the tunnel. But there's so many different things, because you can't. At first, we all did. You'd do your side work, and you could do this 20 hours a day. You go to work for 12 hours, come home, put in another 8, no problem. You just love doing it. You wanted to buy tools, and the longer you do it, it became more and more like work.
It's a chore.
Yeah, and you were tied into it. You got to the point you didn't want to leave work because you didn't want to go home to do the side work at home. And that's, I think we're both fortunate enough now to where work isn't we need a job. We don't necessarily need the jobs we have. Where back in the day we needed those.
I remember my dad telling me the best side gig or part-time job you could ever get was overtime.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think I remember you talking about that when we first met. And you know, he's right. But I think the from when your dad was in the trades to now, I think it's gotten a lot different on what's expected. The expectations out of you. Most places, they have no problem paying, you know, 4 guys to do the work of 8. And they'll pay those 4. Then probably not the wage of 8, but they'll pay them the wage of 6. And it's gotten more acceptable, but the downside is I've seen more people in the last 5 years, I'll say, just leave the industry. COVID. Oh my gosh, when COVID hit, my wife seen nurses leave. Bob left welding, came back to wrenching. We watched mechanics just give it up altogether and go Amazon come through, because everybody has an Amazon going up. Amazon come through, and people would just go there because there's a lot of people, they're not worried about making more. Well, if I can go to Amazon and make $20 an hour or whatever they were making just to drive packages around, you know, they wanted to do that. I'm sure that's got its own challenges, and you'll get fed up with it. But as a mechanic, I have to have I don't have to, but I have a Class A CDL, you know, drive service truck and all that. I can go drive semi, not even owning the semi, put in the same hours and probably make about the same money. And I couldn't do that. I could be a stay-at-home parent probably before I could go drive big truck all day long. Like that's something I can't do that. Yeah, the first week, your first trip everywhere, I'd say that your first trip would be great. But once you're going back to New York a dozen times, it ain't gonna be no fun. Not for me. That is, I've watched firsthand. Secondhand, however you want it. I've seen so many people leave the industry during COVID, and now it's a lot of kids. And this is going to be a future episode we talked about. I think we're probably going to wait for our equipment to get back because we can't share a mic and do this one. But we're going to talk about wages and wage negotiation and that kind of stuff. So I ain't getting into that, but. Right now, there is such a vacuum in this industry, and people just left. There was no warning, no anything, and that's happening more and more. But that's the byproduct you get when you want one guy to do the work of 1 1/4 or 1 1/2 guys. That's the byproduct. They're all good with it until they realize they bought all the stuff they wanted. I got all the stuff I want. I got the money saved up I want. I own my house. I have all this. Well, what's the point? And I ain't gonna lie. I'm coming up to that. Bob, you know, I got my stuff in the works right now that I'm counting them days down, brother, till I'm done slinging chrome, because I come home, I can get through the day, but if you start off in let's just say a number 7 on your stress level gets you mad, and it's out of 20, I come home in a 19 every single day. I take it out of my wife, and I shouldn't. By no means am I going home and beating my wife. I'm not doing that. I just come home. I'm short-tempered. I don't.
Just so you know, I already told her I'd help bury the body.
Yeah, you showed me the spot you'd bury the damn body. I'm just. That's for me. I think it's such a great episode because I'm not burnt out as much as I'm just fed up. I'm over it. And if there's any service managers out there listening, if you're one of the 34 people that are listening to us, just don't tell me how to do my job. Don't tell your workers how to do their job. Because since COVID, I've only had one service manager that actually knew how to do my job. He's sitting across from me right now.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, it's the closest to a compliment I'm probably ever going to give you. but it's a pet peeve, and I'm not going to go on a tangent on this. There's a better time and place for that. I want to give anybody the advice. If you want to be in the trades and your goal is to be a manager, then you be the best tech that can be. If your goal is to get is to get somewhere and you want to be the A guy, you ask every question you can. Because I promise you, the best mechanics I know, they will ask questions left and right. They'll ask questions that some people are embarrassed to ask. Well, I should probably know that. Nope. You get everybody's input on it.
When I was at the fuel shop, you say that, and it made me realize or think about this. When I was at the fuel shop, I was the youngest guy there, and I did most of the on-road stuff. And I had a few times that the guys were really shocked at how much I knew for being so young. Because it's not like I dealt with a lot of young people at the fuel shop. You were usually dealing with people my parents' age on farms and stuff like that. And I had a guy ask me, he's like, you got to be one of the best guys. I says, nope. I says, the thing that makes me good at what I do is when I'm stuck, I know who to call and ask for help. And I knew that it wasn't the fact, I wasn't too prideful to call and ask questions. I paid attention when I would be around, and I made sure, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it anyways. I networked. I mean, that's the best way I know how to describe it. I got to the point where I knew people from a wide genre of companies, and so if I got stuck on something, I knew, hey, this guy's called in and asked me for help, adjusting a fuel pump out in the field, and he works at a case dealer, for instance. And when you and I were working for the city together, we had to go out to the airport and work on a case tractor for the airport, and it's not like I had a wiring schematic and we were chasing an electrical issue, and I thought, I can call him and ask him. And he was the service manager at that point at a Case Ag dealership, and I called him and I says, hey, this is what we got going on. This is the tractor, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, yeah. He's like, that's actually a common problem. He says, just go here and look and you'll find this. And he pretty much kind of walked me through it over the phone. And sure enough, it wasn't the fact that I was really smart at electrical. It was the fact that I knew I was out of my area of expertise without having all the appropriate information, tools, whatever the case was. But I knew I could call somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm running into, and I know you're the expert. So that's what I did. I called the expert. So that's a big benefit. Side note. When was the last time you slung chrome? Actually had a physical ratchet in your...
You get to the point that I'm at, it's a computer. Okay? I'm IT. That's what I am, is IT. We're not getting into that. We're not getting it. When's the last time you were stick welding or TIG welding then? No, you don't get the mic. Bob's saying never. I'll let everybody know.
I hate to break it to you. I get in trouble for stick welding all the time. Like, why aren't you MIG welding that? Because the procedure says to do it this way. But I don't think anybody knew there was a such thing as a weld procedure before I started there. We talk about making money and stuff like that, and I don't want to come across that the only thing we're ever worried about is how much we make at work. Because, and Mark will attest to this, at least for me, I need to make enough money that I want to be able to provide for my family so we can do the things that we want to do. But it's not, I have gone backwards in pay just so I knew I had more free time at home. And actually, when I was working at Smoker Craft, the boat place, that was one of the best things I did there. And now that worked out. I actually got a raise, but like I went from being able to work and make overtime to we got overtime here and there when we were busy, but there was also a lot of times we worked at, a straight 40 hours or just 45 hours, especially at the fall of the year. I mean, the time when I needed money the most, around Christmas time, especially knowing I was headed into a 2-week shutdown, and I hadn't worked there long enough to get my whole shutdown covered with vacation pay. It was one of them deals where it was like, but the thing is like, I was home by 4:00 every day. I had time to do
side work.
Yeah, and that was when I was moonlighting, doing other boat repair. And I said earlier, don't do the same thing you do during the day to help with the burnout. That was kind of cool because I was doing something similar, but during the day I was building brand new stuff. And then in the evening, I was doing boat repair. So it wasn't like I was getting brand new material. I was pressure testing tubes and finding cracks and leaks and stuff. And then I have to go through and gouge it out or grind it out, weld it up, whatever the case was. So it was very similar, but it was different at the same time. And I know, like, for me now, the biggest thing I do is like doing the podcast, and I do some YouTube stuff, and that's how I get my kind of reorient myself to get my mind off of what I do during the day. And like with my YouTube stuff, it's all firewood related, and I basically, when I get an opportunity to go out in my wood yard and split or cut firewood, I just take video camera out there with me. And it just gives me a chance to do something different. And a lot of times, it's not even doing anything physical to combat burnout. We sit up here in the barn and record this. I'm generally smoking a pipe. And that's something in the evenings that has made a huge difference in helping me out, is just sitting down for an hour or so at night and smoking a pipe. And I know it's a tobacco pipe. We live in Indiana. But it's having that time to just slow down, relax, and kind of just reflect has given me, and really reflect on the things that are important. My family, my home, my health, my faith, all of that stuff, and just sitting down and thinking about that versus worrying about what's going on at work or thinking about it.
Well, I think you've nailed it for both of us on one thing we do, but I think one thing you did miss, you'd never tell by looking at either of us, but we are like really active at the gym, and this isn't going to be like some big push for that, but that really, if you take your time off and around Christmas when you go on your vacation, and I go on vacation, I don't get to the gym like I should, and you come back and mentally it shows a little bit. You get a little bit depressed, and I know there's a lot of people like, there ain't no way. I'm telling you, there's nothing better than waking up at the ass crack of dawn, heading to the gym, going hammer down for an hour, and then heading into work, because you sit down at work getting ready to start, and your coworkers are wiping the sleep out of their eyes, and hell, you've already put in a couple hours worth of work.
Yep. Yeah, that has made the whole gym routine has made a huge difference. And like you said, that was when I turned 40. Woo! And it was the following. I wouldn't start at the gym I made up my mind when I turned 40 that I was going to start working out again. And I waited. I wouldn't start at the first of the year because I knew all the people that had New Year's resolutions set was going to be in there. And I was like, ain't happening. So I waited till February to join a gym. And I was doing some exercises and stuff at home. But, and it took me, I would say it took me really 2 years. of going to the gym on a regular basis to where I had that ingrained in me. And you're right. It's like, and my sleep schedule's been really jacked up. So sometimes I go in the mornings before work. Sometimes I stop on my way home from work. It just depends on how the night before went. But that has been a huge, and I know my wife gets a little aggravated at me because she's like, it wouldn't hurt you just to take a day off. And it's not like I'm in the gym every day. I have a 5-day rotation that I do. So, but the way it's broke up, it's not like I'm lifting weights or running every day. I kind of go back and forth with some rest days in between. And it's like, now if I miss a day, it would drive me absolutely crazy. I have to have it's like some people have to have coffee first thing in the morning. I got to get to the gym.
Get the pump. No, and that is, I get talking to people about, hey, you should try my cousin. So, we just had, my cousin's 2 years older than me. Me and him used to be a spitting image of each other. He looks like he's eating me. And he's a great guy, but he's hit that point in life. He's 44, 43. He's 43. I think he's had the first labs ever done the day before Thanksgiving. And I was telling him, like, hey man, here's how you should start eating. The labs are just numbers. Like, you gotta get healthy. Just start getting healthy. And you talk to people who don't go, they don't understand. It's like talking to somebody who's not a mechanic or not in the trades. And I don't understand their work. They don't understand mine. But that's the thing I think we're trying to get across here. We all get burnt out. We all get worked up. It's just figuring out your way to deal with it. Dealing with it, it's not quitting. And we both told you, we'll look at it. That is just how we blow off steam. It's not, we're not putting applications in for anything. If we put an application in, then we've probably already talked to one another or our wives or somebody. But you got to have your routine in the trades, especially. Nobody does this stuff alone. And the quicker you realize that,
you got me thinking about my buddy old Wild Bill. I had a friend that was in the sheet metal union, and he had spent his whole life doing HVAC and sheet metal work, and he was doing HVAC at a steel mill up by Gary. And that dude carried a $100 bill in his wallet all the time. And he always told me, when you get pissed off at work, pull that $100 bill out and rub it all over your face. And he says, all of your anger will be gone.
I'm gonna have to try that. I am gonna put a $100 bill in my wallet, and I will probably call you next Monday like, this ain't working. But it happens. It happens to all of us. That's something. We've talked after our episodes, and we talk about this. We don't know what we really want to define the podcast as, but right now we know trades. If you hear us talk about it, we consider ourselves somewhat of an expert in at least in the trades. It happens to everybody. Everybody's going to tell you, I don't want to say everybody, but most of the people out there are going to tell you, oh no, I just love my job, or just deal with it. Go home and drink beer. And then, hey, that's all fine. But these are the way we deal with it, man. We go out there, you have a bad day, we come home, and hey, maybe instead of just coming home, sitting down and playing Halo and eating fudge rounds, maybe you go run a couple miles or move some heavy weight, do something with some resistance, stretch. Oh my gosh. Anymore, if I go and stretch real good, that's a workout. Like it's crazy. Just push yourself. Push yourself every day to be the best you can at what you're doing. That was kind of what you can't be angry and grateful at the same time. You can't be sad and grateful at the same time. Understand what you have and try not to focus on what is bothering you. That's where I say I try to head it off. It doesn't always happen. The guy sitting across from me right now knows Majority of the time, it don't happen like that. I call him up like, I'm calling these people, I'm quitting, I'm dragging up, I'm doing this, and that. And Bob will seriously be like, well, hey, I know you were, putting a new fresh water pump on your boat, or hey, last winter when I was getting pissed off because I started my own company, I was getting mad about a lot of stuff. Well, I know you're doing this. He just distracts me, and I'm like, wow, yeah, it's kind of dumb what I was getting mad about, but it happens. You gotta go out there and find your Bob, I guess, or find what it is. He's getting ready to grab the mic. Find what it is that makes you be able to get through the day, and hold on to it, and embrace it. Understand that this is going to happen. These are the trades. Everybody wants to watch TikTok and see them pretty girls saying, I'm gonna go to the gas station at 4 a.m. and find myself a blue collar boy. Well, us blue collar boys, girls, we come with a lot of problems in the head, it seems like. What are you writing down?
I had another idea.
Oh man, that is a good one.
Yeah, I would say that definitely we definitely come with our own set of baggage, I guess is the way to put it. 'Cause that's like, I joke with my wife all the time. I was like, you're stuck with me forever because there's nobody else that ever put up with me. So, because I am definitely a man full of quirks. Like the pipe and tobacco thing is a fine example of a quirk.
You're gonna start curling your mustache before we know it.
I don't have enough mustache hair to do that. Besides that, I don't own any skinny jeans. But yeah, just find somebody to talk to. Find some way to combat burnout. And I don't care if you're in the trades. I don't care if you are an executive at a big bank. Everybody.
You think they're listening to our podcast?
No, what I'm getting at is everybody that works is going to run into this. This isn't just a trades issue.
Don't carry the shit yourself.
Yeah, don't carry it yourself. The reason I wanted to put it out there that way is anybody you ever talk to. My wife works in the ag industry, and there's days she comes home and it's been a rough day. Like, they just got done with harvest here, and she worked a lot of extra, and they were super busy, and it's just, she gets burnt out by the end of the day. And so it doesn't really matter what you're doing, you're going to run into this. It just seems to be more noticeable in tradespeople, and I think it's because the burnout's not always just mental, it's physical. And you got to remember, you got to take some time for yourself and your family to be able to combat that burnout. I had one of the, I don't know if he's a superintendent or a field foreman. He's over several crews, so that he'd be a superintendent.
Go with that.
We'll call him a superintendent. I have no idea what he is. Anyways, he come by the Thursday before Labor Day this year and asked me if my boss had talked to me about building doing this project for them so they could cover up a couple pieces of equipment out on a job site. And basically it was an anti-theft device, so people couldn't take the small bits and pieces off these two small machines. And I was like, nobody said anything to me about it. And I was like, when do you need it done? He's like, we need it for Tuesday. We start out on that job site on Tuesday after Labor Day. I was like, well, that's not going to happen. I was like, I'm not here tomorrow. I says, even if I order steel today, I won't have the material sitting here to build this until Monday or Tuesday at the earliest. And I says, even if I can find some stuff here, I was like, I'm off Friday, and then we have the long weekend, because it's the one union holiday of the year. We get Labor Day. It's pretty much the only day we're guaranteed off.
Yeah.
So it was just one of them things. It was like, I'm taking this 4-day weekend, and the super looks at me and is like, well, there's a bunch of the crews that are taking off Friday too. He's like, what is the deal? Nobody wants to work anymore? And I looked at him, I was like, what is the point in working 50, 60 plus hours a week, making all this money and being away from your family all the time if you can't take some of that, take some time off, go spend a little bit of that money and rejuvenate and hang out and spend some good quality time with your family? And he just stared at me like I had 3 eyeballs. So you're going to run into some people out there like that. But nonetheless, take time for yourself. I don't care if it's, and Mark and I are both in the same boat on this. I think neither one of us really ever take more than a week off from work, and that's when we go do the family, like a traditional family vacation. I know Mark does that from time to time, usually in the summer, and I usually do it in the winter, and just because that's when my family schedule it works.
We're at each other's houses with guns. Don't try to rob us.
But other than that, I take a lot of times if I need some time to kind of recuperate, I'll take a Friday or a Monday so I have a long weekend. But that still gives me the ability to be at work and get my job done without creating an issue. Like I said, I'm the only actual welder at the shop. So like if I'm gone for a week and they have something come in, one of the mechanics will have to try and figure it out. And I'm not trying to be mean, but that means I'll usually have to fix it again later. But so just remember, take some time for yourself and let that work for you, because everybody's going to get burnt out. Everybody's going to get fed up. You just can't. It's not the reason to give up, I guess is what I guess that's really why I wanted to talk about burnout. Is a thing everybody gets. Everybody has it. You never hear anybody really talk about it. You just always hear people complain. And I know we probably sound like we spend a bunch of time complaining, but it's like I said, we're just trying to get you or let everybody know you're not the only one going through it. It happens to everybody. I don't care what field you're in. I have a friend that is a neurologist, and that dude works more than anybody I know, like literally. And when he takes time off of work, he does not answer a phone. He is like falls off the face of the earth for a week, 10 days. And that's just how it is. Even right now, I guarantee you right now, if I go grab my cell phone and I call him, it's Saturday afternoon. If he had to go in and see a patient this morning at the hospital, he's already done that, and he's at home. If I call his phone, he will not answer. He'll shoot me a text and say, hey, what's up? He will not talk on the phone.
I think it's time for a giveaway.
We are not giving anything away. Quit with that.
I feel we got 34 people depending on us, Bob. I think I should.
I'm taking the mic back because if he keeps trying to give my stuff away, I'm going to beat him to death. And I did leave that in the recording, just so it's stated. They know where to look for me. But on that, we still have not. I guess we'll kind of start wrapping this up. So we have not got approval through Apple Podcasts yet, but I promise it is submitted. So if you're generally an Apple listener and you haven't got it, I submitted it for approval and I am still waiting on it. So that's why you can't find this on Apple yet. I know I've had several, like 3.
That's several.
That's several at this point.
Yeah.
But we do have it submitted. We're waiting on it. But for those of you that are listening, we greatly appreciate you checking it out and what's going on. And hopefully you'll keep listening. If you do have any topic ideas, we have an Instagram page. If you want, hit us up on the Instagram page and leave us a message there. the Instagram page is at _BS_podcast, and you can direct message us there. I figured that might be a little easier than email. I'll get an email set up too. So give me a little bit, and I'll get that set up, and then we can have an email way for you to contact us too. So if you've got ideas for us to talk about, or you have something that you deal with that's in the trades, hit us up. I have been talking to some other folks that are in the trades that we'd like to get on and talk to them and kind of get their take on the way they came into it. And when I say in the trades, I'm not talking just skilled trades either. Anybody that's got a job where they doesn't necessarily require you to go to school. You basically went in and you did an apprenticeship. You learned under somebody else and you learned how to do your job. Any of that sort of stuff. Just so people can see that is still a relevant option, a viable option for a career path. That's really what I want to be able to show with doing this. Not just listening to me and Mark babble and make fun of one another. So, you got anything else, Mark? Mark's shaking his head, so apparently he's done. So, just want to say thanks again for listening, and hope you all have a good week, and hope to talk to you again soon. Take care.